morning, dear friends.
Good morning.
May the light of Jesus be with us this morning. So lovely to be back after 3 weeks in Brazil. I feel a little touched by the prayer and by the short message from Happy Life, because we have a last minute change. By the way, before I go any further, say hello to everyone that is watching us. Welcome. We had a last minute change. And I felt into it and I said, well, I'm going to talk a little bit about peace. And then, look at the opening. There's these questions, and the Spirit's book said that we are more guided by the Spirit than we realized. And I don't know you guys, peace is a really important moment. Peace is what is required in this moment of difficulties. I just read a highlight message news this morning saying that Elena Newton disturbed the mental problems in Floridians. How much impact we had with these storms, and how many of us lost amount of peace in that situation. So we are going to talk about peace. We are going to talk about the connection with God, surrender our Father's will in action. So all this talk we're going to do is about the book Caminhos da Paz. Unfortunately, it's not translated in English, but it's the path of peace. And of course, when we talk about peace, we talk about gospel. And this book is a collection of messages received in the mediumship group and the spiritist group in Rio de Janeiro, where Susana's mother works. It is a fabulous book. And all the good spirits that gave this message, when any high-level spirits give a message, he talks about the gospel, the message of Jesus, right? So, before I go any further, I want to ask you guys, who here feels need more peace in their life? If you feel the same, raise your hand. So, all of us, most of us, need a little bit more peace. And the first question is just for our reflection. What takes our peace away? Let's look in these pictures. Do you feel any anxiety? Or is it because you are in a conflict with someone or with yourself? Are you having fear? Or you lost a job, or you need a job? Or you are sick? Or you are in that life 24/7 running for the money to pay the bills in the months? Or you have harboring some resentment or have a broken heart? Any of those situations take your peace away?
Oh, yeah.
So when you look in these pictures, can you identify that? And spiritists come to bring some lights in this situation, because we know that in the stage we have many problems, many difficulties. But when we learn, when we see that something out of us can take our peace away, that's information for our inner peace, our transformation. Because when we look at the world, there is a lot happening, right? And if we conditioning our peace with the things that's happening outside of us, we're going to be in trouble. That's why the level of anxiety in the planet is very high. That's why there are so many people that are living fears, and so many people are having mental problems or panic attacks, because they let what's happening outside of the world disturb their peace of mind. But it's a natural thing. We are here to learn how to handle our emotions. But we learn in the Spiritist doctrine is not what happened to us, it's how we handle what happened to us. There is a story that I heard that 2 soldiers went to the war, and they were in that, how do you call that, barrier? That when they go underground to,
Barricade.
Yeah, barricade, yeah. And one of them came back home as a hero, and another one was totally destroyed by the war in traumas. They experienced the same war. They experienced the same trauma. They experienced the same pain. The difference is how they handle what happened to them. So our goal is to share light, how we are handling stuff in our life. And how can we create the peace within us that regardless the hurricane that is passing by, we remain at least in a more sane situation, right? The first time I had a hurricane experience in Florida, I went one of those persons that was glued to the TV and totally panic mode, you know? And in the end, it was almost nothing. So I learned right there, oh my God, how much I gave my power away, believe in every single word. The media, the sensationalist media, wanted me glued to the TV and watch all those ads. So that was my first experience. But there are sometimes so many conflicts we're involved. How many heartbroken situations we are involved that it's hard for us to remain in peace. And we hope with the message from these good spirits that wrote this book, it can bring some light and help us to increase our ability to maintain our peace. And I love the text from Joanna D'Angeli when she says, if I remain in peace in my heart, regardless the conflict around me, I give my example. And I help one person in the group, and then it'll be two. And then eventually can be three, and eventually can help the whole group. We can help the whole group, and I shall be an example for our community and so on, in our family. And sometimes just start with us. So it's about us, regardless with whom we are with, and in which group we are immersed, depend on us. How can we work and have peace within us? What happened? So the reflection after that we look at is what prevents us from building our peace. Every time we face difficulties and the way we face them, we collect information about how fertile the soul of our heart is. When we shift, every time that we lose our peace and some anxiety started to sit in, if we shift to that viewpoint, what information this emotion is bringing me? What information is bringing this situation? In every moment of difficulty, for sure there is a lesson to be learned. I don't know you guys, but I started learning my lessons way past the situation. Then I look back and say, now I know why. So when we shorten that span of time and can see the lesson in the present moment, we can shorten as well the amount of conflicts, amount of distress, amount of anxieties that we feel until we see the lesson. So when we look that perspective and have what information I needed to, this difficulties is bringing me. Like when Carlos did that talk, it's not why, it's forward, right? I'm here to learn this. So now it's the same situations, but instead of looking at what creates anxiety is or what prevents us from building our peace. So if we look in our situations now, when we experience some conflict, when we experience some anxiety, if we can see what is preventing us to maintain our peace, we get a lot of information what's going in our heart. And that gives a more empowering way to resolve the situation and remain calmer while we are resolving the problem. And that make a whole another level how we experience in our difficulties in life. Because when I have a big fear, if I just stagnate in that fear can grow and ferment and sometimes can totally blind my course of actions. But if I keep it still and see what is preventing me to keeping my peace, I collect more information how to handle our fear. Because fear, it is like it's like the dark, it's just absence of light. So when I look at the fear in the eyes and bring light to the fear diminishes. But if I just look in the fear without bringing the light within me, I can put some a little east in that feeling that can grow sporadically. So that's why we need the connection with God, the learning how to surrender to our Father's will and action, because peace is a result, is an effect that cause of which is the permanent use of the ingredients mentioned above. So I cannot have peace if I'm not connected with God. And I cannot have peace if I don't know how to surrender to our Father's will. And I cannot have peace if I don't act on it and build my own peace. So we are going to talk about the ingredients of fear. And the first thing we talk about is our connection with God. And for that comes to place our ability to pray and our ability to be silenced. When I pray, I ask God directions. And when I silence, I can hear his answer. So many times in our anxious mode, we pray, but we don't stop to listen to the answer. How many times you did that?
No.
Especially when we are praying out of fear or anxiety. We are just demanding, God, please help me out. Like taking the effect. But I'm not looking at the cause. It's like drying ice cubes, right? You can momentarily be okay, but it is not lasting because we are not looking at the cause, just treating the effect. Exactly what's said in the message. So prayer with a fervent predispose the spirit to observe the forces that vibrate with the infinite power, keeping the harmony of the universe. It is through the prayer that the man obtains the assistance to the good spirits who come and running to sustain him in his good resolutions and inspire wholesome ideas. In this manner, he acquires the moral strength necessary to be able to surmount all difficulties and come back to the strange and narrow path should he at any time stray from it. By this means, he can also turn away from himself and all the evil which he attracts through his faults. That's in the gospel. So, we heard many times how important it is for us to pray and get the assistance of the good spirit. And that is a very important step for our moral education. Many times we wait until we are buried with all the anxiety and fears, and then we remember how to talk to God. But from that space, it is so hard, isn't it? How many times you are involved in tremendous amount of difficulties, it feels like you don't even know how to pray. And if you pray, your prayers do not get out of your mouth because all these sentiments that true connect with the good spirits is not there because you're totally immersed in your fears and anxiety. One of the things we talk in the Virtuous Workshop, keep your connection with God in a high speed. Don't let fragment it, the connection. Because when we need is right there. And many times we connect with God in our prayers, but from a space that we are demanding what we want, forgetting that they are there to assist us what's best for us. And the connection with God, it requires, overall we're going to talk about it, the moral strength necessary to endure our difficulties. And sometimes we ask, God, help me out. Give me the patience to deal with the situation. And the situation really shows up for us to learn to be patient. But we don't understand the lesson, right? And when we want to impose our will towards the situation, that's where the cook crumbles. So it's very important that our prayers has this fervent to absorb the support they can give us, to open our mind, to give us the intuition we need. But for that, we need to open our mind. We need to be connected, praying with connection, because what truly connects us is this fervent feeling that we are there, ready to grab God's hand, receive the intuition necessary to give us the strength that we are going to overcome the difficulties. The inner silence expanded the spiritual energy, unfolding the outer circumstance in serenity. The noises and tumults distract the thought that must be connected in the higher goal of the communication with our Father. When the spirit is stunned by the tumult, discernment is confused, and the mental and emotional component shift from the attention that must be given to the essential, to the benefit of secondary acquisitions, ours incapable of calming the heart. That's exactly what happened with us. In the midst of difficulties, we get so stressed, exhausted, overwhelming our emotions, in our mental confusion, that we cannot assess the intuition and the discernment. The good spirit are right there next to us. But we are not there. We are not present enough, silent enough to hear. We are just involved in our difficulties. And that is the difficulty when there are too many noises and tumult, distract our thoughts. And many times we have so many defects of character in the present moment, that conflicting situation, that blind us and create like a veil that impede us to assess the connection of the good spirits. And they are right there with us. How many times we read in our doctrine that the good spirit were right there. Andrelu's mother was right there, 80 years with him, and he could not see her. Because it's happening just that. The noise, the tumults, and fix us in a situation. How many times we know by our own experience, and we're learning by also watching someone else's experience, completely locked in a thought, an obsessive thought and situation, repeating the same thing over and over. Do you know someone like that? Or we are in that situation? I have things that I repeat over and over until I say, hello. This has become a distorted thought, completely obsessing myself with a noise and a tumult. In that moment, I'm totally separated. The good spirits respect our free will, and we cannot assess our discernment because it's so confused. And the mental disturbance that happened today in the media that projects so many things, and we observe. So we need to be very careful what we have been feeding our mind and our soul. So many times we are feeding with disturbance, confusion. We are buying the projection of values that does not reflect what we are learning, that we want to apply the gospel in our life, right? Comparing ourselves, trying to achieve goals that is just destroying our health. Thinking that by achieving that goal, we are going to be in peace. But sometimes we are just losing in peace by pursuing that goal. So all that gets very difficult for us to get the true benefits. So that's important, the silence. Especially when we have those situations in fear, anxiety, conflicts, heartbroken, resentment, whatever it is that's showing up in our door. The importance of the silence for us to listen to the voice of the good spirits. And especially when we listen to the voice, don't think it's our good idea. That's another trick too. Oh, I got it. And that's another illusion, right? If you know, Carlos knows what I'm talking about. You're the same. So in these hectic days, it's necessary that the silent thought for renew intimate landscaping, pacifying ourselves. Seek silence and attain it. Create the habit of immersing yourself in bathing the clarities of the Word of God speaking to your heart. Do not postpone this luminous experience. Initiate as soon as possible. This is an invitation for us to take a bath. A mental bath, a spiritual bath. Be squeaky clean in our heart, in our soul. Sometimes we're sticking.
Yeah.
And we don't realize. Others can see, but sometimes we don't realize. Because anything that is mental confusing us, we are stinking a little bit. And that's what attracts our not so welcome companions, by the smell, by the photograph of that dirtiness in our soul. So the silence, and keep a little bit that silence. It's like taking a bath. Immerse ourselves in a clean water. And from that clean space, we can hear our heart, because God talks to us in our heart. We feel in our vibration. How many times you are in a situation, just say, "Dear Father, help me." But you say with such a powerful meaning that you feel the words in your heart. Everybody had an experience like that, right? Of course. And that's the way. And this is what, the more we do that, becoming aware, the same thing that we do our hygiene every day. We take a bath, we brush our teeth, comb our hair. It's important for us to take the spiritual bath. Do whatever it takes for you to be squeaky clean, to facilitate the communication with the good spirits with us. God speaks through them. Another very important part of the peace is our ability to surrender. Most of our suffering is because we are kind of rebellion spirits still. Our selfishness and our pride is too high. And from that space, it's hard to surrender. But it is a must. Understanding what's happening and acceptance. Two ingredients that if we don't have, we cannot achieve peace. We cannot learn to live in peace, acquire peace and maintain peace. Understanding the mistakes and difficulties of others, overcome all the conflicts. Acceptance, the root of humility, simplifies everything. And that is one of the hardest lesson for us in this planet, in the level of moral that we are, to get it. Because learning to surrender our wishes, our actions, our will, under the God's will, is the hardest thing to do. Because we have a very good idea of ourselves, what's right, what's wrong, and sometimes we are so much attached, what is right and what I want, it's harder to surrender. It's harder to accept the situation that is in front of us. I don't know you guys, but sometimes the situation is so hard, the conflict is so big, it's an insult to believe that we create that. That this is good for us. There is a lesson there for us. It's almost an insult, isn't it? We want to change that because that in our mind does not reflect who we are. Oh no, I don't want to have a child like that. No, I'm going to change him. I'm going to do whatever I can. I cannot accept. Sometimes I cannot accept that I fell. And I try so hard. But when we remember that we surrender, we understand, everything changes. Because when we trust in God and trust that every single experience in front of us is for us to grow and accept, there is this expression in Portuguese, accept that it's less painful. I don't know if that makes sense in English. But when we accept, it's less painful. Okay, it is what it is. It's not a passive action. It's the opposite. You need to have a lot of courage. A lot of courage to accept. To have this acceptance. Because it's from this acceptance that we grow. I can accept that I'm here now in this mistake. But when I accept, I can change. If I'm just trying to prove it wrong, I'm stuck, completely stuck. And when we have that surrender, have the trust that everything that is happened to us is our next step. When we accept that and understand that, we move forward. We don't get stuck in the difficulties. When I look back in my life, all the situations that I got stuck because I was being rebellion. I was being difficult, obnoxious, full of myself in my high heels. How can God help me there? I was like, I'm the one. I can do it. And when I pray for God, I want to tell God exactly what He needs to do for me. And here now, because I don't want to wait. And that's I lived in many years in my life. until the moment I woke up and say, hello, this is not working for you. It's not working for you? No, I'm suffering. I'm stuck. And that's the way I learned, in a very hard way. So it was just an amazing experience of being in Brazil, and had my flight in the day the hurricane was passing, Wednesday night. So everybody in my family didn't want me to come. Oh no, you're going to fly in the day the hurricane is passing by? What can I say? What I could do? Pray fervently to ask God to guide me. I totally surrender. Trusting that the facts that I was observing, I would be guided for the best solution. Because surrender is not a passive. Because in so many ways, there's some blind faith that says, I'll put in the hands of God and do nothing. No. Surrender requires us to do our part. And do everything we can. And realize there are some things I can handle, but there are other things I can't. When I can't, I surrender, because God knows how to plan. And it was so wonderful being aware that I had fears. Pray over my fears, they disappeared. I got anxious, pray over my anxious, they disappeared, because I was surrendering. Trust that if God put me in that plane, it's because He has a good plan for me, and everything will be all right. Because if I had to die in a crash because of the wind of the hurricane, I could change my flight, and something would happen, right? Thank God it was the best trip I ever had. Zero turbulence. I also had turbulence coming back from Brazil. Zero. I prayed so hard there was zero turbulence. So I said, in the past I would be controlling, deciding. I forgot to include God in that decision. And that's what it's all about. Surrender and bring God to help us in that decision. So constructive acceptance will always be perhaps more than half of the ingredients of the solution to any of the problems that distress you. Protect your home against disturbance and disharmony. But if your action has no effect, then accept the house in which you live for your school of regeneration in love. Revolt is pitiful delay in any organization. Embrace your difficulties when you cannot extinguish them, healing them little by little under the effort of your serene energy. If we don't learn anything, don't grasp anything from what I'm saying, this is it. That's it. That here, the secret for me, for peace, for growth. Constructive acceptance is half of the way of our difficulties. When we just accept and do everything we can. Because if I'm stressed, if I feel my fears and stress, what ambience I'm going to have in my home with my family. So when I do my part, I dissolve a lot of difficulties. And just what it said here, if my action does not create effect, it is in my past to be in that conflict. But instead of feeling powerless and suffering like a victim, it's just accept that it's my opportunity. The school of regeneration and love. There are so many things we learn when we accept. Learning to accept our children, our spouse, the way they are. But I cannot do that if I don't have constructive acceptance towards myself. How many times we fight and resist and do not accept our own selves, our own fragilities, our own little things, because we all have our little things. And many people don't like our little things. Mm-hmm. Let's start with me, accepting myself. But by doing that, little by little, try to change. Because the acceptance is the unglue to move forward. When I start accepting the way I am, I start moving forwards to change to a new me. When I resist it, when I reject myself, I keep creating the same level of difficulties until I surrender. You know how many times we say you need to get to the bottom to grow? Mm-hmm. That's what it is. Constructive acceptance. Sometimes just accept, I don't know how to do something. Instead of putting a mask, pretending you can do something, but you're broken inside because you're desperate, but still pride to say, gosh, I cannot do that job. It's too big for me. I need to learn. I need to change something. How many difficulties and disharmonies we bring to our companies, to our family, to our group, when we cannot say, I just cannot do this. Take the pretending face that everything is okay. And recognize you're exhausted and broke. Have you had that experience? It's such a relief to admit who we are in that present moment. And the good news, when we accept it and surrender, God, that's it. I'm here, I'm broken, I need help. My way is not working for me. Please take the wheel. I love that song, Take the Wheel. And everything changed. You haven't changed much, but you open your energy to receive the help you needed. For us to change, we need to have the constructive acceptance. And they say here, more than half for the peace we have. Because we are accepting help. Because when we are determined from our stubborn will, with our pride to get done, there is no room for spiritual assistance.
Oh, yeah.
And that's what we sometimes very hard. We pray, but in our ego, in our egoistic desire to prove we are right, there is no room for assistance there. And God waits us until break our head in the wall. Eventually, you have a moment and say, I cannot do it on my own. Please, God, help. And then the help comes. Like happened in Osula with André Luiz. How long he suffered until you fervently kneel in front of God in his spirit. I need help. So we don't need it to wait until past life to learn the lesson. We can transform our life right here. Because the peace is in our hands. Because it's in the hands of God. If we put our hands in the hands of God, we have the peace. It's not about the circumstance around us. Another ingredient of the peace is faith and work. Faith overcomes fears. Work frees the mind from useless ideas. Then we can, the spirit bring with it many anxieties. True faith is real, fruitful faith. Faith that shakes the fibers of the heart. Faith that moves the mountain. Faith, divine inspiration of God, awakens all the noble instincts that lead the good man in the pace of regeneration. Faith, to be profitable, must be active, not asleep. It's just about a true faith. Because when we have faith in our own will, we're becoming more and more emotionally confused, mental confused, because there is a limit what we can trust in us. You experience that? When you think you can do and you embrace 5, 6 jobs, get so exhausted, overwhelmed, stop sleeping well, and then everybody's looking and waiting for your project to be complete, and then you start slaving yourself to that. Have you experienced that?
Oh, yeah.
Then you have that feeling, I'm broke. I'm broke inside. And we have faith sometimes in our own power. Too much faith, but that's not the faith we are talking about. We are talking about the true faith. Trusting that whatever is happening, God has the best for us. We are a child of God. And we forgot we planned this incarnation with all the difficulties that are here because we were sure we can overcome them. Otherwise, God will not allow this incarnation to happen with the experience that we are exposed to. They believe on us that we can do it. And they invite us to have faith to help us. This faith is very active. We need to do our part because we needed to construct our faith. That faith that moves mountain is under the God's will. When we have acceptance and surrender to God's will, we have the true faith. Faith that God is this immense force, powerful source of life, love, and guiding our life. And He has an army of good spirits that surround us to protect us. So I don't need to be in fear. I trust. And I'm connected with this army of good spirits. I can endure any difficulties, and then I can move all the mountains. I can move all the obstacles, because I'm not doing by my ego or pride. I'm doing with the force of the army of God's servants that I'm able to connect with. And Jesus is commanding the army. When I have that image that I have an army of good spirits, I feel more empowered to make the choices. But now I know my choices are not made by my ego, my mind, my obsessive thoughts. That decisions being guided and illuminated by the light of the gospel, inspired by the good spirits, because we are all surrendered our will to our Father that knows exactly how to put the right person, the right moment in front of us. Have you experienced that? I had a situation in Brazil that I needed a severe treatment, and I needed to combine the lab appointment with the dentist. It's a group of dentists that was going to do the work for me, and they needed several hours, so they need to cancel almost the whole day for them. So they only could cancel and get me the appointment if I had the lab results. And with that, I need to get the right flight to go to marry all the dates. And I say 3 weeks trying to organize that, absolutely exhausted and so frustrated because I could not do it. And then I realized I'm doing that all by myself. I'm pushing everybody, commanding, I cannot do it. And then I remember I forgot to pray about it. In that moment, I prayed fervently and said, Dear Father, I need this treatment. I can't plan this. It's too much for me. I did everything I could, but I just feel powerless. Help me out. 40 minutes later, the dentist texts me, you're looking the wrong lab. Go in this lab that is next door to me. I send a message to the lab, answer me like in 10 minutes. Oh, you have those appointments. I text to my dentist. He said, great, this day is good. I open my email. Latam was on sale on that date. And in an hour, the problem was resolved. Mm-hmm. I cry. I pray and cry. In that moment, I renew my faith. And I say, I still want to do my way most of the time. And I keep forgetting to include God, to surrender, to get the guidance I need. So renew my faith in that moment. So from that day on, there is not one day that I woke up that the first thing I do, I put my will under the command of God, knowing that that day I'm going to be guided. And I ask Him, tell me where you want me to go. What do you want me to do? Illuminate my thoughts, that all my thoughts are guided by the good spirits. Trust me, I feel emotional because my life got so much better. It's not even funny. Mm-hmm. So faith, to have faith in God is to keep in the heart a luminous certainty that our Father exists and does not leave any of His children helpless. A conviction that goes beyond the scope of simple religious belief. Achieving faith is the possibility of no longer saying I believe, but rather say I know, with all the values of reason, thoughts of the light of feeling. The faith is not stagnant in any circumstance of life, and knows to ours work, intensify the amplitude of His illumination by the pain, by the responsibility, by the effort, and the duty fulfilled. My life from that day on completely changed. Has been a few years now. Completely changed the level of my faith. Because in that day, I surrendered my self-sufficiency, my perfectionism, my rebellion attitude to say, I can do this on my own. So I feel like the face is transformed, and from that day on, my level of peace increased tremendously. Thank you for listening to my experience. It really touched my heart, and I want to share that with you. Translate assurance into God's assistance. Express the confidence that knows how to face all the struggle and problems with divine light in the heart. Everything is possible to one who has faith. This was taught by Jesus as we read in Mark 9:23, an affirmation that demonstrates the importance of faith in our lives and encourages us to do everything to conquer it. Whoever has faith does not feel alone. And this is very, very important, this level of confidence in the God assistance, because remove from our eyes that veil of illusion that we can do it all, that we can have it all. And many times, because I was not clear on that, I said yes to many things that exhausted me, that took my peace away. So with that assistance of God, you can do this? No, I can't. That's going to disturb my peace. That's going to keep me awake because I don't have enough mental capacity to do so much. I learned to discern because now I've been guided just to do what serves God for me to do it. And I become so much more productive. It is amazing. I do a lot more than before. Because before I was doing things from my ego, from my need of to be right, to accomplish the word and embrace things that I should not, was not my business to embrace. With God's assistance and my faith now, I have more discernment to be aware what can I embrace, to be in peace, but to serve. And I've been serving a lot more. That's hilarious to me. Learning to say no helped me to be more productive because I focus on quality of my will through experience. And that is a blessing of the work. Under no circumstance do not permit the empty hour. Justifying tiredness or disillusionment, irritability or boredom, intimate despair, avoid falling into dismay that opens up clear action of the good, favoring useless and inspiring pernicious idea. Work is, alongside prayer, the most efficient antidote against evil, since it conquers incalculable values with the spirit correct the imperfections and discipline the will. Discipline the will is the goal here, because the bless of work under God's guidance, it is a wonderful thing. Because many times the skills and the difficulties is just comes from our defect of character that impede us to do the work, the blessed work. When we are guiding from the good spirits, the work is a blessing. So that's my reference. By the end of the day, if I'm exhausted and irritable, there is an information for me. What part of me lost my connection with God there? Because when we are working under God's guidance, in the end of the day, you have that feeling, mission accomplished. I can be sometimes physically tired. My age is changing now a little bit, I feel. But my heart is not heavy. My mind is light. That vibration is light. So now I know I did everything that God wants me to do. When I'm tired, irritable, and too much overwhelmed, I can tell you I was not under the guide of God, but see, I was being guided by my pride or selfishness somewhere, somehow. And learning to identify where my selfishness manifests or where my pride is manifesting, I can eliminate that layer that impeded me to surrender and accept under God's will. And it's so magical. So every moment wisely taken adds productivity to your song of hope. Work of good origin in any direction produce happiness and peace. So every time anyone comes and asks for help, if I'm under God's assistance, I find a way to help without hurting me. Because before I was trying to help everybody and do the work, but in the end I was bleeding inside of me, exhausted. And many times took my peace away, took my everything away because I was not there. because I cannot assist others when I'm not okay. So all these become part of the growth, the moral transformation that is important for us to learn. So wisely taken, every moment wisely taken. There are some moments that I need to breathe. There are some moments that I need to rest. And then I'll go back and I'll work in a blessing work, a lot more productive. By the end of the day, when I breathe in, that's my information, my connection with God. And I know if somehow my heart is not in peace, I ask God to show me where and when I lost my hand. I took my hands off yours. And I see it. And that's the good news. The good Spirit shows us when we are willing to see. So if you want peace, building these foundations, prayer, silence, understand, accept, and face, and do the blessing work. Peace is my home. Peace at home. More peace in the world. That's what I wish for all of us. That we can learn to be more peaceful in our heart. So each of us can be a light outside. To our home, to our community, to our work. So we can shine the light by our own peace as an example. That it's not about what we can conquer in the world, but how much peace we can bring within by just surrender and allow the God to guide our lives. Thank you very much.
Thank you.